Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Topic of today's version of Old Man Shouting at Clouds is trust. And why trust? Why would I pick that? Because I firmly believe that it is one of the key foundational elements of any relationship you will ever have. And why is that? Well, let's probably start by defining what trust actually is. So I'm going to read because I will not remember this from heart, but it is a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. Putting that in more easy to digest terms, I guess, it maybe helps to have an example. So to me, what trust really is if somebody tells you they're going to do something, you have full confidence they're actually going to do that thing. Or vice versa, if they tell you they're not going to do something, you have full confidence that they won't do it. A good example would be if you handed your bag of candy to one of your friends and you said, "Don't eat this, I'll be right back." You you're trusting them to actually not eat it, right? Uh, Now that's not the end of the world if they had a couple pieces of candy, but it is a good example of what it means to be trustworthy. Now, as you get older and the consequences and the things you trust people with get more and more important, then it is a big deal, right? If you ask somebody, "Hey, I'm leaving you with the keys to my car, don't take it," and they drive away with it, yeah, that's a pretty big problem. Now you're stuck wherever you are, and that's a pretty big investment. So you can see why trust is important and why it only gets more important as time goes on. Now this is important in friendships. It's important for families, but it's also important professionally, right? If your employer doesn't trust you and they don't believe that if they ask you to do something, you're actually going to do it, well, you're going to have a really hard time holding down a job. Uh, Bring that into something else. Let's say you don't work for anybody, you work for yourself, you start your own business. Well, you aren't going to have any customers if they don't trust you, right? If they buy something from you and they don't have full confidence that that thing is of value or is good or is as good as you say it is, you aren't going to have customers for very long. So being true to your word is incredibly important. I could argue it's one of the most important qualities you could have as a person. And that's something I try very hard to live every day. Now, none of us are perfect, and I don't think anyone expects you to be perfect. Sometimes the things out of your control happen, right? Like maybe you borrow your friend's car and you tell them you're going to have it back at 5 o'clock. Well, there's an accident on the interstate and you get stuck in traffic. There was nothing you could have done about that, except for maybe take a different route. But your friend is probably going to understand that that was something that was out of your control. If it happens a couple times, once or twice, if that becomes the rule and you always have an excuse, people pick up on that pretty quickly, right? And now the things that are out of your control start to seem like maybe they should be a little bit more in your control. So that's something to be aware of. But if there's a good reason why something happens, I don't think anybody expects you to be perfect. They just expect that over time, who are you most of the time, right? If 90% of the time I ask you to have my car back to me by 5 o'clock, you have it back to me by 5 o'clock, I'm going to keep lending it to you. If 90% of the time I lend you my car, you don't bring it back when you say you're going to, I'm probably not going to lend it to you for very long. So it is an incredibly important trait. Now, something else that's really important is kind of the flip side of that. Like I've spent most of this time so far talking about how important it is to be trustworthy, to be the person who is earning someone else's trust. But there's an equally important flip side of that, which is the importance of trusting other people. Now, that can be really, really hard, especially if you're somebody who's been hurt before or you've been let down by people that you trust. It can be really hurts, right? And it can be hard to then give that trust away again, right? Because you got hurt the last time, you got dinged for it. So you're more hesitant to do it again. But one thing to always remember about trust is if you're expecting other people to trust you, you should expect, or it's fair for them to expect you to trust them. And critically, you can never, no one will ever be able to earn your trust if you don't give them the opportunity to earn it. So something that as you guys get older, you'll start dating people, right? Or your friendships get a lot more serious and you get a lot more invested in them. So it can be tempting in those situations to kind of guard yourself, build some walls so that you can't get hurt. But the reality is, the more you do that, the less opportunities you're giving somebody to earn your trust, and then how are they ever going to do it, right? So let's say as time goes on, you're developing stronger friendships, and now you have a best friend, right? And you start to get scared, like this person has a lot of, like I have a lot invested in them, and if they let me down, that's really going to hurt. So I don't want to give them that opportunity. Well, you're also not giving them the opportunity to be the best friend they can possibly be for you. And this goes even more so for relationships. Once you start dating people, they really have the power to hurt you, right? But if you don't give them that freedom to do that, they can never fully earn your trust, right? You have to let them be in positions where they could hurt you in order to earn as much of your trust as they can possibly get. And so a perfect example of that is with your spouse, the person you marry and choose to spend the rest of your life with, right? Who has a greater ability to hurt you than that person? Almost nobody, I would argue, right? So they could step out on the relationship, right? They could cheat on you. They could take all the trust you've invested in them and smash it to pieces. And man, like I've seen people go through that, and it is crushing to those people. However, if they get into another relationship again after that one, the only way that relationship has a chance of succeeding is if they open themselves up again to the possibility of getting hurt, and they trust a person and allow them to be in situations where that trust could be violated, because that's the only way to really build it. So, maybe, you were in a relationship with somebody and they went to a party with a bunch of other friends and you didn't go to it. And something happens there that totally violates your trust. Maybe it ends the relationship. The only path forward is to get over that and realize that it is impossible in life to avoid putting your trust in the wrong people, right? I've done it before. Other people have put their trust in me at times in my life when I wasn't worth it. And sometimes, as much as your mom and I try to get you to not learn lessons the hard way, sometimes the only way to really learn the lesson is the hard way. And then you don't ever need to be reminded again. And so investing your trust in the wrong people sometimes is the only way to realize which people are worth investing your trust in and which ones aren't, and how to kind of qualify people ahead of time before you give them your full trust. But you sometimes have to go through the pain to figure that out. And I've done it before, and I've also felt the pain of having somebody else invest their trust into me and I didn't live up to it. That also sucks on the other side, right? But that also teaches you why it's so important to be trustworthy, because you don't ever want to feel that way again. So that's really critical. And then just being strong enough to keep putting your trust out there and to keep giving people opportunities to earn it, because when they do earn it, it's one of the most valuable things possible, right? It's the most rewarding kind of relationship to have, is a relationship where you can completely trust somebody else. And you know that if they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. And it's worth the pain that it takes to get there. Now, that being said, loss is the flip side of that, right? So you are going to take some losses in this process. You are going to invest your trust in people that you felt totally confident in, and they betray that trust. And you'll have to figure out if you can move forward with it if you can't. And if the reality is you know that you can't, as hard as it is, the time has come to sever that relationship, because it'll only be toxic after that point. If you know you don't trust them anymore, there really isn't a point in maintaining that relationship unless there's a way for them to earn it back, and maybe over time that'll happen. But at that moment, you probably need to just part, because there'll be too much pain wrapped up in it, and it'll just lead to a bad relationship. It'll just lead to you constantly bringing up the fact that they burned you. Well, no one wants to live like that. You don't want to live like that, and the other person doesn't want to live like that. So that's not a path forward. Now, sometimes loss can take really permanent forms, right? And not through anybody's fault, but the entire reason I started making these videos in the first place was the thought of my own mortality, right? And the realization that something could happen that would take me away from you guys before I've had a chance to tell you everything I want to tell you, or teach you the lessons that I want to teach you. And the motivating factor behind that was loss. I lost one of my best friends in 2019 unexpectedly. And it made me think of the world differently. And that pain was incredibly powerful. And it's still powerful now. I mean, we're coming up on the 5-year anniversary of me losing one of my best friends. And I still think about him all the time. And it still hurts that he's not here. But that doesn't stop me from going out and making additional friends and developing new relationships, even though I know that at some point we're all going to lose the people that matter to us. But that's the thing that makes life beautiful, and relationships beautiful, is knowing that it's not permanent, and knowing that you have to enjoy every moment you have, because you don't know how many of them you're going to get. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I hope you don't view this as a reason to not open yourself up, because pain exists and is real, but rather that's the best reason to do it, is because yes, pain is one outcome, but the other outcome is beautiful enough to make it worth the sacrifice. So again, if you take a couple things away from this, be the kind of person who can be trusted and give people the opportunity to earn your trust. And if I've done anything right in life, it's been those two things. And not always. None of us are going to be perfect. You will, unfortunately, probably fail to live up to some people's trust in your life, or some person's trust in your life. And some people you invest your trust in will fail to live up to that as well. But it's still, it's what you do over the course of your life that really matters. It's not any one particular moment, one particular success or failure that defines you. It's what you do over time. So while I can guarantee you there are people you could meet who could tell you stories about times I didn't live up to their expectations, and those stories would be accurate, that's why I try so hard, as often as I do, to live up to my word. And if I say I'm going to do something, I do it, even if it's inconvenient or it costs me in the moment. I still think that it's worth it, and it makes me able to live with myself. So be the kind of person who's worth trusting, and give people the opportunity to earn your trust, even though it's going to hurt sometimes. So anyway, enough rambling. I love you very much, and until next time, bye.